We're jumping straight into really the core challenge facing pretty much every IT leader today.
Yeah.
It's this image that Dorn Andras, the CEO of DAM Invisible Technology, used. He talked about spinning plates. This constant kind of stressful balancing act.
Right. Keeping multiple things going at once.
Exactly. You've got one plate that's all about stability, keeping the lights on, systems running smooth, data flowing reliably. That's crucial.
Absolutely foundational.
But then at the same time, you're expected to spin this other plate, the strategy plate, driving innovation, new business value, digital transformation, getting ahead of the competition.
And when the pressure's on one of those plates, it inevitably starts to wobble, right? And it needs that immediate, often really exhausting intervention. So our mission today really is to dive into this comprehensive Orbit 2025 report. It's from DAM Invisible Technology. They pulled together data from 57 IT leaders, and they also did these really deep dive conversations with CIOs from some huge companies in the region, things like the National Post, major retailers, big telecom providers.
So big players.
Big players. And we want to look past just the surface stats. We want to distill which of these plates, particularly the leadership and strategy ones, are slowing down the fastest and what that friction really means for your business.
Okay, so where do we start? What's the first big takeaway?
Well, the first thing, and it's a definitive win for IT leaders, according to the sources, is this strategic transition.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the overwhelming consensus is that IT isn't just like a technical support unit anymore. It's really positioned now as an active partner in business development.
That feels like a shift that's been talked about for years, but is it actually happening?
It seems so. I mean, that transformation is fundamental. We're way past IT just being seen as a necessary cost center.
Right.
And to really underline this, look at the quote from Jabagi Laszlo. He's the CIO of Szerencsejáték Zrt. That's the National Lottery.
Okay.
He basically said, look, we see ourselves as an IT company too, because every single transaction, every single euro of revenue, it flows directly through their system.
And he put a number on it, didn't he? A really scary number for downtime.
He did. It's terrifyingly clear. They calculate that downtime costs the business the equivalent of over $500,000 per hour.
$500,000 an hour. That certainly changes the conversation.
Absolutely. It's not just, are the servers up anymore? It's, are we actively preventing a massive immediate hit to revenue?
Yeah.
But here's where it gets interesting and where resources really seem to define the ability to be strategic. The report found that organizational size, it matters a lot.
Okay, how so? What's the difference?
Well, in the bigger companies, the ones with over 50 IT staff, they found IT is involved in core business development about half the time. They seem to have the capacity, the resources to actually be strategic.
Right, makes sense. Critical mass.
Exactly. But then you look at the smaller IT organizations, those under 50 staff, that strategic involvement, it just plummets down to only about a quarter of the cases.
Only a quarter. Wow.
Yeah. So it really suggests that, while everyone wants to be strategic, actually making that partnership real, it seems to need a certain level of resources, people, specialization, the whole bit.
And I guess this shift also shows up in how they're measured, right? Their performance metrics.
Totally. They're not just judging CIOs on technical uptime anymore. I mean, a negligible number, practically zero, evaluate IT only on technical grounds.
So what are they using?
Mostly it's a mixed approach. Over half use a blend, technical stability metrics, sure, but also actual business and professional results.
Like what? Give me an example.
Things like time to market for a new product that IT supported, or how well they integrated customer feedback into a system update, tangible business outcomes. And what's really fascinating is that nearly 10% have gone all the way. They measure IT success exclusively from a business perspective.
Exclusively business metrics. That's a big leap.
It is.
So, okay, if that's the goal, strategic partnership, measured by business results, you'd think the main demands on the CIO would be things like innovation, finding new markets.
You would think so. But here's where the report points out this major kind of expectation gap.
Oh, okay. What's the gap?
Well, even though the CIO is at that strategic table, the top tactical demands, they've barely shifted.
Really? So what are they?
Number one, absolute top expectation placed on IT. Improving cost efficiency.
Still cost.
Still cost. And number two, increasing service availability, making sure things don't break.
So the purely business stuff, like using data for decisions or finding new opportunities.
Important, yeah. Mentioned by about half the respondents.
Yeah.
But definitely secondary. They come after keeping costs down and availability high.
So what does that actually mean for the CIO day to day, that gap?
It means, well, you're invited to the strategy meeting, sure. But your immediate job security, it still fundamentally rests on those two tactical things, costs and uptime.
Right.
The aspirations are strategic, but the daily pressure is just relentlessly operational. And that tension, it forces the CIO to constantly pull resources away from those forward-looking projects just to shore up the existing stuff. It effectively slows that strategic plate right down.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that tension.
Yeah.
And that feels like it leads us right into the next big issue, maybe the biggest slowdown factor in the whole report.
It does, the leadership challenge, which, as the data really clearly shows, boils down overwhelmingly to a people problem. Talent.
The people problem. Okay.
It's cited as the #1 obstacle stopping CIOs from hitting their strategic targets. Finding skilled IT labor and then keeping them. That's #1.
And number 2.
Number 2, often mentioned, is just navigating the current tough economic environment. Budget pressures, uncertainty.
But the talent piece is number 1. How bad is it? Do they quantify it?
Oh yeah. If you look at the raw data on recruitment, it's pretty stark. They asked leaders to rate the difficulty of recruiting on a scale of 1 to 10.
Okay. 10 being hardest.
10 being extremely difficult. Nearly 3/4, 75% of all IT leaders rated recruitment difficulty at 8, 9, or 10.
3/4, that's a crisis level, isn't it?
It really suggests a severe, acute struggle to find new talent in the market.
Wow. And what about keeping the people they do have? Retention.
Retention is also difficult, definitely, but maybe not quite as catastrophic. Just over 1/3 rated retention difficulty in that same 8 to 10 bracket.
Still tough, but better than recruitment.
A bit better, but here's that interesting size thing again, that anomaly you mentioned earlier.
Right, the smaller organization.
Yeah, the smaller IT orgs under 50 staff, they actually seem to find retention easier.
That doesn't immediately make sense. You'd think the big companies, more resources, maybe higher salaries, they'd win the retention game.
Yeah.
Why are the smaller teams doing better?
Well, the report doesn't give one single answer, but the implication, it seems to point towards things like culture, environment.
Okay.
Look at the numbers. 25% of those small orgs said retention was relatively easy for them. Compare that to the really big orgs, over 250 staff. Only 11% said it was easy.
Big difference.
Huge. It suggests that maybe those smaller, less bureaucratic setups can offer, closer working relationships, a more direct line of sight to the impact of your work, maybe better work-life balance.
Things that aren't just about the paycheck.
Exactly. Things that often trump sheer compensation, especially maybe for more seasoned talent who are looking for meaning, or maybe just less corporate friction.
Okay, that makes sense. But even if you can find and keep people, there's this other layer, right? The skills gap.
Oh, yeah. It's pervasive across the board. Get this. Out of 57 IT leaders surveyed, only 3 gave their team a perfect 10 out of 10 for having the skills needed for today's business challenges.
Only 3 out of 57. Wow. What's the average rating?
The average team gets rated a pretty solid 7 out of 10.
7's not terrible, but
It's good enough for keeping things running, maybe, maintenance mode. But it consistently lags when you need to adopt cutting-edge tech or really drive transformation. 7 isn't enough for leading change.
and what kind of skills are missing? Is it just the latest tech buzzwords?
That's the crucial part. It's not just technological knowledge, although that's part of it. The deficit, they report, is spread almost equally across 3 different areas.
Okay, what are they?
One is technological knowledge, yes. Things like cloud expertise. That was missing for about 21% of respondents.
Okay.
But almost equally lacking were communication skills, and what the report called mindset.
Mindset, what does that cover?
Things like really understanding and embedding established frameworks like AiDIT for service delivery or embracing the whole agile philosophy, DevOps culture. It's about how you work, not just what you know.
Right. The culture and process side.
Exactly. And the lack of communication skills, that comes up as a massive barrier. Tobak Tomas, the IT director at Waberers, he explicitly noted that the absence of, appropriate high-quality communication, that's what often hinders actual business development.
So IT folks need to be better translators between the tech and the business needs.
Precisely. They need to gather, understand, translate, and then communicate sometimes really complex business needs, both inside IT and crucially outwards to the C-suite, to the users.
And if communication is such a big gap, maybe it's because they're just too busy dealing with the next fire, the next operational slowdown, like this priority roller coaster the report talks about.
Yeah, that's a huge drain, constant change. Nearly 2/3 of organizations said they have to reschedule projects or tasks at least occasionally, sometimes more often.
So plans are constantly getting disrupted.
Constantly. And here's the key point. The main reason for this rescheduling, it's usually not some internal IT failure or mistake.
No. What is it then?
It's changing needs or shifting priorities coming from outside the IT organization, from the business side.
So the business sets a strategic goal, IT starts working on it, and then halfway through, the business moves the goalposts.
Pretty much. And IT is left scrambling to adapt.
So when priorities shift that fast, how do organizations actually cope with that whiplash? What do they do?
Well, the methods vary quite a bit, especially by size. Overall, the top method cited by nearly 30% is basically decisions driven by top executive involvement. Meaning they push the prioritization problem upstairs. Let the C-suite decide what's most important now. The big organizations, they lean heavily on that executive intervention and also on reallocating resources.
Okay. But what about the smaller organizations? They might not have that C-suite access or extra resources.
They often resort to a simpler, maybe more direct solution.
Which is?
Extending deadlines, just pushing the date back. Half of the smallest IT orgs use that as their main tool.
Makes sense if you're resource constrained.
It does, but less than a quarter of the largest organizations use that option. Again, it points to that resource flexibility. The bigger teams can throw more people at it, internal or external, to try and keep the original timeline. The smaller teams just have to say, okay, it's going to take longer.
You know, this whole priority roller coaster, the shifting goalposts.
Yeah.
It sounds like it often comes down to a fundamental misunderstanding at the start of a project.
Exactly. And Kovacs Zilton, the CIO of Aachen, the big European retailer, he had a great term for it. He called it the definition deficit.
The definition deficit. I like that. What does it mean?
He described encountering two types of users, basically. You have those who genuinely just don't know what IT is capable of doing. They don't ask for enough or the right things. And then you have the other extreme. The users who believe IT can solve absolutely everything instantly, like magic.
Right. The just make it happen crowd.
Exactly. And both of those scenarios, they lead to poorly defined projects right from the start. And those poorly defined projects, in turn, are the most frequent cause of things slipping, getting delayed, priorities changing.
That definition deficit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's class. You hear echoes of that everywhere in IT, don't you? It really highlights that the communication breakdown isn't just about IT lacking skills, it's a cultural gap, a gap between the technical core and the people actually using the systems.
Absolutely. And that's why you see some smart, proactive strategies trying to bridge that gap, like the initiative they mentioned at Magyar Telecom.
What do they do?
Takacs Gurgely noted they organized visits for the IT team out to the stores or to customer service center.
Get them out of the server room.
Pretty much. Help the IT team see and understand the real-world impact of their work, get closer to the business, talk to the users directly. It's about actively trying to close that definition deficit.
Yeah, that kind of deep understanding of the business, that should be what drives technology investment decisions, right?
Ideally, yes.
So let's pivot to that final slowing plate. How does all this strategy stuff translate into actual spending? Procurement. When they're selecting new IT solutions, what's really driving the decision? What makes them open the checkbook?
Well, number one, overwhelmingly, is safety first. Security.
No surprise there.
Not at all. It's effectively mandatory. Critical factor for 61%, important for almost all the rest. You basically can't buy it if it's not secure.
Okay. What's number two?
Number two is price and ROI. Return on investment. That's mandatory for almost half and important for another 44%. So cost is still right up there.
Security and cost, the fundamentals. What else is important?
Integration with existing systems is huge, and user experience, which again kind of confirms they're still wrestling with complex legacy infrastructure, right? Making new things play nice with the old things.
Right. But this brings us to something you called the great AI paradox earlier, which sounds like it really captures this tension, this strategic plate slowing down.
Yeah, the paradox is really quite striking when you put the pieces together.
Lay it out for us.
Okay, so on one hand, you have expectations for digitalization and automation, AI capabilities. They've risen massively. 79% of organizations reported increased expectations in these areas.
So the strategic roadmaps are full of AI. Everyone's talking about it.
Exactly. The strategy plate is spinning fast with AI buzz. But when it actually comes time to buy a system, to sign the purchase order, AI capability itself is listed as a mandatory or important factor for less than a quarter of businesses.
Less than a quarter, despite nearly 80% having higher expectations.
Precisely. That's the paradox.
So what does that tell us? Why the disconnect?
It tells us that right now, today, security, immediate cost control, and just making sure the new thing connects to the old things. Those practicalities are trumping the strategic push for advanced AI capabilities in the actual purchasing process.
So the CIO might be driving that strategic plate, talking AI.
But the procurement team, or maybe the CFO, is looking at the stability plate and the budget and hitting the brakes. The fear of, say, vendor lock-in or integrating some potentially disruptive but maybe not fully secured AI system, that fear seems to be currently outweighing the desire for bleeding-edge transformation, at least when the money is on the line.
Okay, that's a really important dynamic to understand. But when organizations do manage that tension, they make the investment. How do they know if it paid off? How are they measuring ROI?
Well, the hard metrics are still common, of course.
Right.
Traditional ROI calculations measuring immediate cost savings or efficiency gains, that's definitely there.
Standard stuff.
Standard stuff. But there's an increasing focus, especially in the larger organizations, on the soft or maybe human-centric metrics.
Like what?
They're now systematically looking at things like customer satisfaction scores, CSAT results, and tracking improvements in employee resource utilization. Are people able to do their jobs better, faster, with less frustration?
So connecting IT investment to the experience of both external customers and internal employees.
Exactly. It reflects that maturation of the IT role we talked about. Success isn't just measured in pure efficiency anymore, but in how well IT improves service delivery to its ultimate customers, whoever they are.
Okay, so if we try to wrap this up, synthesize what we've learned about keeping all those plates spinning. It sounds like CIOs have largely won the battle for strategic alignment. They're at the table. They're being measured at least partly by business results. That plate seems relatively stable.
Agreed. That shift seems real.
But their single biggest organizational bottleneck, the thing most likely to make other plates wobble and slow down, it remains human capital.
Absolutely. That catastrophic recruitment crisis we talked about, the ongoing retention battle, and that pervasive gap in skills, not just tech skills, but communication and mindset too. That's the core friction point.
Yeah. And the central tension then, the thing that's going to define success or failure over the next couple of years.
It seems to be that friction you described perfectly, this rapidly increasing strategic demand for AI, for aggressive digitalization, versus the tactical reality of their spending, which still heavily prioritizes foundational stability, cost control, risk management. That gap represents major, slow-moving risk. The strategic ambition is outpacing the operational and financial reality right now.
Okay. And speaking of slow-moving risk, something that really demands proactive leadership right now. You mentioned a final provocative thought for our listeners, pulled from the report data.
Yes. It's quite pointed. Even as loads of organizations are actively implementing generative AI, or at least experimenting with it.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
It is. But more than half of the IT organizations surveyed have not yet addressed the compliance requirements for the upcoming EU AI Act.
More than half haven't even started looking at compliance for the AI Act.
That's what the data suggests. And that's a critical plate that really cannot be allowed to slow down or wobble. Preparing for those regulations, which start becoming compulsory in 2026, that needs leadership attention now.
Because failure isn't just a legal fine, is it?
No, it's much bigger. It presents a significant strategic risk. It could derail your entire digitalization roadmap if you haven't built compliance in from the start. It's a major leadership challenge hiding in plain sight. Something for you, the listener, to perhaps explore within your own organization. Are you ready?
A really crucial final thought. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the strategic and leadership challenges facing IT today. We'll see you next time.